Hello everyone, I am Oracle Oriah, and today we have a very special guest. We have with us a Crystal Skull researcher and explorer, Kendall Morgan, and he is from Tucson, Arizona, and he is joining me tonight last minute. It was so nice of you to just drop everything and just join us. So thank you very much for that. And I do want to let our viewers know that in case there is some audio malfunctions, which you will see from time to time, Kendall was saying that the crystal skulls tend to disrupt the signal of the audio waves. So we will have moments where we'll hear him and he'll blip in and out, but that's fine. We understand what's going on. But I have always been very interested and curious about crystal skulls. And since 2008, he has dedicated his time and effort to put on events and bring people together and connect people to the crystal skulls, and crystal skulls have a way to find him. And so I am going to be asking him every question under the sun so we can get to know who you are, Kendall, and tell us all about the crystal skulls. So I don't know where you would like to begin, but the most important place to start is to find out exactly what is a crystal skull. I think that is the biggest question most of us have. Can you please describe what it is?
Well, a crystal skull is what it is. It's a crystal, and a phenomena takes place. And it's a very interesting phenomena. Scientifically, we believe it's a biochemical phenomena that takes place once the actual eyes are put into a piece of crystal. And because
did you say eyes?
The eyes. Yes, because then the phenomena that takes place is the skull basically comes alive.
Wow. So now you find the skull first. Is that what happens? They find a normal human skull, or is it, in which order does this occur?
Well, there's a lot of information out there. Again, I'm Kendall Ray Morgan, in case you want to find me on Facebook. But
do you go by Kendall Ray as a one?
Ray.
So
yeah.
Kendall Ray Morgan altogether is one. Okay.
But basically, there are crystal skulls that actually had came to the planet that were seeded here during the time of Atlantis. They were actually seeded on Earth, and those particular crystal skulls is where we get the story of the 13 crystal skulls. This is where it originates from. Is the fact that myth has told us that there was an original 12 skulls, and the 13th skull has not actually been found yet. So those skulls, though, were in Atlantis, and then as they were moved from there during the destruction of Atlantis, and they went to the Yucatan. Their first stop actually was in Miami. Their first stop was at the Miami Circle. They actually stopped at the Miami Circle. They did ceremonies at the Miami Circle, and then the skulls moved on with those people to the Yucatan.
Now, what era is this that you're speaking of?
We're talking probably 12 to 15,000 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking 12, 15,000 years ago. And so those skulls then moved on to the Yucatan, and there the Itzamaya people actually have codexes that I've seen them from the Itzamaya Council in their possession. They have codexes of the crystal skulls and how they were being used. So the so-called shamans, or let's just say at that time they basically were called priests.
Right.
They were the priesthood, and the priesthoods ran the temples. Okay, and so Mexico is and Belize and Guatemala, and they're just full of temples. And so the actual crystal skulls were used as messengers from the gods. So the people would gather around for different ceremonies, whether it be marriages or maybe someone did something wrong in the group, and so they had to punish that person. And so they used the crystal skull. They would set it in the middle, their ceremonies, and then they would wait to have one of the shamans would communicate with the skull, and basically they felt that was coming from the gods in heaven. So those skulls had a purpose. Now later the Mayans believed in them so much that they began to incorporate a calendar system in their codices, and so they had a crystal skull that was used for each day for different things. Okay, and that's why we have, it seems like people say, well, there's more than 12 skulls out there. It is, and it's primarily because of that, because they were also carving from the original skulls. Or we have modern day carvers now in Brazil, in China, and these carvers are now getting quartz and other crystals, and they are carving skulls. So you, in the crystal skull world, you can say, well, it's either an ancient skull or it's a modern skull, you know. So it's like many times people want to know, is it modern? Is it ancient? Well, during our 1010 event with the Mayans in New York City, Humboldt's men said that doesn't matter, because even if you get a new skull 1,000 years from now, or 2,000 years from now, or 10,000 years from now, that same skull will be considered an ancient skull. But there's more purposes. There's more purposes in what he meant. It's reason to have one. There's a lot of reasons that you really want to have one.
So, you know, a lot of people own crystals. They're in their homes right now. So if you have a crystal skull, does the intentionality change of, I guess when you're carving it, it changes the way the vibration.
Once they get the eyes into the crystal comes alive.
So
phenomena takes.
Does that mean that
we cannot explain that phenomena?
When you say it comes alive, does it mean that it's activated and it can now hold a different frequency?
It becomes a being.
And is that from the intentionality of the carver?
Yes.
It is, right? So crystals hold a separate vibration than just a typical, like I have a crystal right here. I could show you. So I have this crystal and it holds one like vibration or frequency. And then if I were to carve this into a crystal skull, as soon as the eyes come in, the self-reflective nature of the eyes, right? I guess it changes.
Yes, and for example, excuse me, the Aztecs and the Toltecs, they didn't really know what the crystal skulls were about when they first encountered them. They really didn't know, because it was the Mayans who had them. And so when they got them, their representation meant death. And you can find skull racks in Mexico City at Tenochtitlan, of the actual skull racks of all the skulls. And so the skulls represented death. And it's interesting because this size skull right here is the same size skull as the only skull that the Smithsonian Institute claims is a real crystal skull. And it's in Mexico City in the National Museum of Anthropology, and it's on showcase for everyone to see, and it was found at Tenochtitlan on the staircase.
Is that because the way they found it, the people who found it, there's a trail of certification from the archaeological dig, and
it was found in an archaeological sanctioned dig.
And so therefore you said the Smithsonian, right? So the Smithsonian is now holding that skull because it's considered one of the original from that 13. Is that right?
The National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City will not release it. They let the Smithsonian look at it and study it, but they would not give it to. They're not going to give it to them. It's kept in the museum in Mexico City.
I see.
And not only that, as an insider, because I was there, they actually have other crystal skulls that are authentic crystal skulls found in digs that they are not showing anybody to the public.
Now, what makes them so unique? So like when you're in a dig and you find all these artifacts, and then when you come across the crystal skull, what makes the crystal skull different from all the rest of the artifacts that you're finding in the, let's say, in the dig?
As an archaeologist, it's just another artifact.
So how is it different? Is it because of the Atlantean?
Someone who does psychometry, holding objects and sensing things about them, it's very important. And very sensitive people and very psychic individuals have tremendous downloads of information.
So it's like an activator then. So you can use it for healing purposes?
A lot of times it's used for healing. A lot of times it's used for healing. But I would say it's more of a computer.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
You have to have the codes to get in to the actual software.
Really? Yes. And so when you talk about the software, are you talking about like in a human being, our inner wiring?
Some of this technology is not known yet to the planet.
So this was used in Atlantis as in some of their technology.
Yes. Huh?
Got it. And have a lot of psychic and intuitive people, have they connected the dots in this area? Have they been able to hold these skulls and can find this lineage, like psychically?
Yes,
Wow.
Yeah.
So now, so today you have a lot of them, is that right? There's a lot that exists on the planet.
Yeah, today we have a lot out there that is out there. There's quite a bit, yeah.
And do you have, are they ranked in any special order? Are there some that are more powerful than others?
Well, what is considered of course, the ancient ones that we feel that have been studied and considered are the ancient ones, seem to be the ones that have the most interest. And obviously, you have a Mitchell Hedges skull, you have Max, you have Shana Ra. You have certain skulls that are out there that have had tremendous phenomena take place with them, and that could be healing. It could be information. It could be someone seeing something. I mean, there's a lot of phenomena around them.
Have you personally held one of these original?
Oh yeah.
You have?
Yeah, we brought 12 of them together in New York City.
In the big convention that you were mentioning, the Mayan convention.
Yeah, we did 4 events. I don't know if you can see this, but we did 4 events. One was in Phoenix, one was in New York City, Manhattan, and then we did one in Los Angeles, and then we did one in Miami.
That's my marriage anniversary, 11/11/11. So really cool. What I was doing when you were doing that event.
I can imagine what you were doing.
That's really awesome. Okay, so have you personally, when you're around these skulls, is there anything that happens to you? Do you change? Like, does your energetic frequency change?
Gone most of the time. Most of the people that know me, I mean, I'm out there most of the time. It's like, it's just the frequencies are so high. I've spent time with a lot of crystal skulls considered to be ancient crystal skulls in Mexico that hadn't been even come out yet. People bring them to me when I'm in Mexico City, and I've spent time and had downloads from them. It's just I'm out. And not only that, I do work with something that the Academy for Future Science has, which is called the language of light. And so I work a lot with the language of light, and that just between that and the crystals, I'm gone most of the time. It's like he's out there. He's
So
just
can
gone.
you walk us through do you have any ceremonies or any kind of meditative times that you set aside where you connect with the skull and the light codes? Can you
Yeah,
walk, like for somebody who's never heard of this or would like to try it, is there a way that they can do it themselves, or how could they?
yeah, they can do that themselves. A lot of it is intuitive, working with the skull. Sometimes people get a brand new skull, it's a brand new, considered a modern day skull, and they say, well, what do I do with this now? That happens quite a bit. And there is someone who wrote a really nice book about that, and that his name is Jaap van Eaton. Jaap van Eaton. And he's in Sedona area. So he was our master of ceremonies for like 4 of these events. And so, but he's very knowledgeable about working with the new modern day skulls. Yeah. And so basically from that, what they do though is that there's certain ceremonies that they would normally have, like maybe a candle or a building a nice campfire. If they want to just sit with it, that's fine, and they can just meditate with it. That's fine. What's happening is it's also not just a computer, but it's also recording. It's almost like a recorder. It's recording everything that you're doing. Okay, so it does have some sort of memory. That's why it says it's a phenomena that we don't quite understand yet. We hear a lot of people say these type of things, but then we hear a lot of people that say, I don't believe in it. They're fakes. They're this, they're that. I really think it's where you're coming from your consciousness level.
Yeah,
But
some people will look at any crystal, and to them it's just like nothing, like just a rock. They don't understand what it does. So I understand that. So what's interesting is that, so when you hold a crystal skull in your hand, or you put it in the circle of a ceremony and you focus in on this crystal skull, your visions are probably going to be different than if it was just a regular crystal, I assume, because you're connecting to a different idea. Wow.
If I was going to set with this crystal skull, like I have, and I do, basically I'm using the fact that it can record information from me, and 2, it magnifies whatever my thoughts are. It magnifies that. So if I'm saying prayers and I really want some strong prayers, someone needs some healing, that kind of thing, I'll have my skull with me to magnify that. And then I don't go around telling people, oh, this is what I did. They just say thank you,
Right. So it's a tool, and so what I'm also picking up on is, because the fact that it's the human skull, so that represents our identity, right? As reflecting back at us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you bring it up closer to the camera so we can really see it? Oh, wow.
I'm trying to get it.
That's really, really cool. That is really, and that's obviously quartz crystal.
That's quartz crystal.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. I could feel the vibrations from here.
Oh, yeah, I can too. Even just sitting here, I mean, the energy starts to rise. The actual skulls, they start to heat up. They actually start to heat up. They
really?
Get warm. Yeah. So here's another one.
Wow. Recently, I created this album on my Facebook group, United Starseed Connections group, and I collected a whole bunch of pictures of every kind of crystal skull. This was a couple weeks ago. For no reason, I just felt compelled to do that. And I saw crystal skulls from tiger eye, emerald, rose quartz, you name it. Rainbow.
They make them out of all kinds of stones now.
It's just incredible to look at. There's so many beautiful ones.
the work that I do and the work that I've been doing, and from what other sources have told me, that the quartz is very important, and there's a lot of scientific reasons behind that now, that even modern day scientists are starting to find out what the importance of the quartz is and the location of where it's at, where it was found at. So, and I was told that actually from a Mayan shaman before any of the scientific work was ever just recently published. So, you know, we're catching up with science and spirituality are kind of catching up with each other. And one kind of needs the other to, you know, to work together to move us forward. Yeah.
Well, I would say, you know, being somebody who kind of, I bridge a lot of worlds. I can talk in the metaphysical world, spiritual world, archaeology world, history, human history, metaphysics. I love branching into all these areas. But one thing I will tell you is that when I see a crystal skull, especially those large ones, or if I feel one near me, just the idea of it, it feels so mystical and so magical. Like there's a magical quality to it that's unlike anything else that I've experienced, which is regular crystals.
Well, you know, just the skull symbol itself has gotten so big. It's on designer clothes, it's on tattoos, it's on, you know, everything you can think of, bumper stickers. You know, it's just like it's all in, and it's because it's all in our consciousness. You know, and basically, in my opinion, from the work I've been doing, they represent change. They really represent change. And skulls have a tendency that's why they have guardians, because they have a tendency to get lost. You know, like maybe for 100 years or 1,000 years, that skull was totally, nobody knew it was there. You know, they seem to get lost underground. They like to get lost underground and in water. We have some that are in water now that we know of.
That's really crazy.
Yeah.
So somebody must have intentionally, or maybe a flood or something happened.
As a guardian, who knows? Because what we have identified is that when a skull needs to move, it's going to move. It's just, if it needs a new guardian, it's just gone.
Oh no. But what about if you get attached to your skull and you don't want to let it go? You'd have to renegotiate.
No, it's been very heartbreaking. We've had that and we've seen that happen.
It hasn't happened to you, has it?
Hasn't happened to me.
Oh gosh, no. I wouldn't want that to happen to you. How many do you have total?
Right now I have 3.
Wow.
I have 3 quartz crystal skulls right now. And this little one, by the way, is just as powerful as the larger one.
Do you know, I realize now, come to think of it, in my crystal collection, somebody has given me a crystal skull, but they were just the little mini ones, and they don't look like yours. The head is not shaped like that. It's more just a round circle.
Okay, it may have been glass, maybe something out of glass that somebody.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's at the level. Can you hold it up again so I could see the shape? So the back of the head on yours, there you go. You see how it's elongated?
Yeah.
I noticed the bigger ones have the same thing. The one that you buy in the stores that use just random, you can just go buy one. They don't have that shape.
No,
And they are probably just made of glass. I don't know which one mine is made of. Because I didn't really understand what crystal skulls were. I didn't really find the time to understand and get into it. And
the main thing came down, you know, it got a lot of publicity, of course, you know, with the Indiana Jones movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you remind me a lot of Indiana Jones with your whole adventure seeking. And have you been out to the Mayan area, or the Aztecs, the temples and the ruins and everything?
Yeah, many times. I've traveled there many times. Yeah.
And how do you feel when you're there?
I feel one of the things that I do when I travel to places like that, like sacred sites, possibly, you know, because some of them are.
Right.
What I try to do is I try to keep myself and my food intake very clean, very light. I drink a lot of water, and then I'm in my meditative state, and I use the language of light to bring my frequencies up, and then I kind of just let myself be led when I get there on a site. It's like, okay, let my intuition lead me where I need to go.
Well, being that you're such a strong empath, I mean, I'm starting to pick up, because I'm intuitive also, I'm picking up that your dreams are very fantastical.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just like, I travel a lot in my dreams. I travel quite a bit. But as far as physically go, now some people don't even really need to physically go there. That's another interesting thing. But if it's in your path that you have to travel to these places to get what you need to get from that site, whatever that is. And from my experience, which has been a lot of experience, it seems to center around knowledge, information.
So some people feel, and I did hear this, that some people feel that the crystal skulls represent an alien species or different off-planet beings. Have you heard that? Or
yeah, we hear that a lot. And I think a lot of that is from soul memory. A lot of the people that come to the events, they're either having contact as ongoing contact, or they've had previous incarnations where they worked with the skulls themselves, and they may have even been Mayan, and they worked with the skulls. They were priests, and so there's people that have those memories. But as far as the cosmic connection, which there is the cosmic connection. Like I said, the original so-called 12 were brought here from another planet. And they were brought, and they came to Atlantis. So that in itself would, if people had soul memory of that, they're going to be connected on some level because of the phenomena that takes place with the crystal skulls.
So in the Mexican museum, what was the name of that museum? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City.
Okay, Museum of Anthropology. Do they have the array of the 12 skulls on display, or
no?
Do you know?
No, the 12 are scattered.
Do you have people found them all together, or only just a few?
Oh, there's people that claim to have found them. They have them in their possession.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
Wow.
one of the best ways to experience that is to go and sit with it.
Oh my gosh.
That's why the events brought them all together, so people didn't have to travel all over to see each one. They could just come to one place and see them and experience them there.
So what I'm picking up on, I mean, obviously this is a brand new topic for me, and many of my viewers, probably this is a new topic. So I'm asking the questions a novice would ask, but the feeling I'm getting is that, the reason it's probably so popular and so many people go to see them is that, like you said, when you sit in front of it, there's probably a feeling you get. There's an overwhelming physical experience that you have.
Well, not only do we have an aura, we have an aura, they have an aura. So once you get in their aura, your aura gets in their aura, then you're having that exchange. You're having an exchange. That's the phenomena.
Well, you're holding it right now, and it feels very alive. It feels very alive. I don't know how come I can feel that from here, but there's an experience I have where it's very knowledgeable. It's all knowing.
So
it's interesting because it's a combination of being programmed by the programmer, holding and storing the memories, and then reciting it back to you like a mirror, almost like a reflection.
Yes, it is. And matter of fact, some of the guardians who own some of these ancient crystal skulls, they say, oh my God, this skull, because maybe they're a new guardian to it and they don't know that much about it, but all of a sudden they're saying, wait a minute, this skull is reflecting me, my own personality. It's doing things. It's because that's what it's doing. It's like a magnet.
Right.
And then it's magnifying. So we've heard that quite a bit with people who have
Wow,
skulls.
it's so powerful because you can see it from so many points of view. You can see it from the psychological, the physical, the spiritual, the psyche. There's so many ways that you can see this, because as soon as you, first of all, have amplification with the crystal, then you have the symbology of the human skull itself, and then the self-recognition combined with your intentionality, combined with not knowing the mystery of the crystal because you don't know where it derived from. I think all of those things together, it just creates this like really electromagnetic charge.
Well, I basically would look at it like this: is that it's kind of a spiritual tool, just use it as a tool,
Mm-hmm.
and see if that works for you. See if it really works for you. We have seen another phenomena that takes place, and that's when they buy one. Usually, when they buy one, then they get another, and then they get another, and then they get another. And some people can't really slow down. Next thing you know, we've had people have had 20, 30 skulls.
Woo!
So it's
Can
your
you imagine
own.
going
It's
into their house?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Can imagine. I've been there. Yeah.
What is the most expensive skull that you've held, meaning on the market price of what people are willing to pay for it?
Well, one of the skulls that I didn't get a chance to hold, but that skull at one time was in Los Angeles, and the name of that skull is Ami, with AMI, Ami, and that was and is an amethyst crystal skull, and that skull was on the market for $1 million, and it sold. And so the new Guardian does not want anybody to know, where they're at right now, or who they have it. So, but we know that skull sold for $1 million. Yeah.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, can you believe it? And I know some other skulls that are in Mexico that people have that would probably honestly be worth the same amount of money if they decided to sell it. But a lot of these skulls end up in private estates. Yeah. And so they don't really advertise that they have it.
Right.
But if they feel that there's certain people that they want to get an appraisal of what the skull's doing or what information's in it, and they can't get it, there's people like myself will get called in. Can you come in? Can you sit with the skull?
Really?
And for some reason, they just come to me. The skulls come to me. I mean, it just happens that.
So you get phone calls for people who would like you to do a reading on the skull to find out its origin or the guardians or just information about the skull.
Right.
That's very fascinating. So if anybody needs to have Kendall do a reading on your skull, if you have a skull, please reach out to him. We'll put his information down below, and also you can find him on Facebook, Kendall Ray. And also, now the crystals that you have in your house, have you read your own crystals?
Yeah.
And what have you discovered?
For example, this particular crystal skull has actually sat next to ancient crystal skulls that are out there. And crystal skull guardians will do this many times with a new skull. They will take it to a guardian who has an ancient skull and say, can I set my skull with yours, let's just say overnight? Can they stay together overnight? And so what's happening is there's actually a download of information from that skull into this skull.
Right.
And then someone like myself has it. And all of a sudden I'm doing meditations and I'm seeing this and I'm getting that and I'm getting all this other information. And it was because this was with that other skull. And there's a lot of that takes place even in ceremonies. People will bring them. That's what we brought them together. The event in New York City, was what we called the Legend of the 13 Crystal Skulls, but it was considered the full circle event. It was a full circle. And when we ended the event, a Mayan elder, Humbat's man, got everybody up, got them doing some geometric in a big circle, and it was very geometric. and with the crystal skulls, everybody was in this huge circle, and then we would get in the middle of each person had a chance to get in the middle, and so Humboldt's man did that ceremony, and it was a pretty powerful ceremony. A lot of
I
people
can imagine how supercharged that event was, how people felt being around such high-powered crystal skulls.
And then right at the end of the event, and for the next 2 days, there was UFOs all over.
Wow. Oh my gosh. This is like a whole beautiful world. I had no idea. I mean, I knew of crystal skulls, but I never understood the intricacies and the details. And I also didn't know that you could read, like be a reader for a skull, which is fantastic too, because I mean, that's a good way to understand the lineage.
That's a lot what the guardians do, the guardians of their own skulls, especially the so-called considered ancient skulls. They'll let people come for private sessions to set with the skull. Max is a big one. I first got involved a little bit because Max came to Tucson, and I actually sat with Max, and I was kind of a non-believer, but Joanne Parks was there here in Tucson. She brought Max, and Max gave me information. Like you're just like, all of a sudden you're like, where's this coming from? And it's like, they consider it a download. You just get this download.
Wow, the amplification, it is a communication device. This is very, very amazing. So I want to know if you can tell the difference. If you found a crystal skull, can you tell the difference between the carvings to know how old one is? So like, can you find out like this is very ancient from like tens of thousands of years ago? Then this carving, can you tell by the carving? Can you tell, is there certain nuances?
The serious researchers usually can tell. Yeah, because the carvers that were carving back in those times. Now remember, the original 12, they weren't from here.
Right.
Okay. But the carvers that wanted to carve like those, they usually had a certain pattern or style. I would say style. And so you knew that those skulls came from that carver. It's that way today. We have some carvers out there today, and people can say, "Oh, that's a so-and-so skull," because they know that's how he does that. And they look at the teeth, and the eyes, and the big cheekbones. They're looking for things like that. Yeah.
So now that I know and understand about the crystal skulls, can you tell me a little bit more about? It's so beautiful. So explain to us about the light codes and how you use that with crystal skulls.
It's a good question. There's probably only a handful of people right now that I'm aware of on the planet that does that.
Okay.
And some of us know each other already, and we can access the skulls and their information by using certain light codes or angelic language. I consider it to be the actual part of the programmer who knew how to program and knew how to get into the program as we would a normal computer. So, and we're trying to access that software that's running, the actual software that's inside of here, the storage of that information. And a lot of times we feel that for some reason, there was a lot of information in this location, in the cheap.
When you say that, are you talking like in the quantum field level?
It's a quantum level, yes.
Like the vibration that's being held, just like in a airwave, radio wave, or light.
Yes. And there are some people though that don't need necessarily to do that either. They can actually access it by I would say like a Wi-Fi signal or something. They don't have to be right there. They can hone into that skull and get the information, and the skull will give it to them.
Wow. So now what happens if there's a dig and there's like a lot of academics and there's archaeologists and scientists, and they find a crystal skull, what do they do with it? What did they think about it? How did they treat it? What do they talk about?
Well, today, after Indiana Jones, if a skull is found, they're going to treat it very special. Yeah, because there hasn't been, like I said, the only one. Now, the Smithsonian used to make claims that Smithsonian Institute, that there are no crystal skulls have ever been found in an archaeological dig. Well, that's not true, and they know that's not true because we have the one in Mexico City. So that kind of
Is there a way that Mexico City can legitimize, or that, I don't know, the city or the museum can legitimize that skull somehow, that it was, can they track that to an archaeological dig that's been like certified?
Yeah, those artifacts, when they're coming out of the ground, they're being logged in,
Okay, that's what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
So then the Smithsonian should acknowledge that if they have the track records.
It does now.
It does now. Okay.
It's just in the last year.
Really?
Yes.
So the crystal skulls are making their way to mass consciousness now.
Yeah, it was a big jump. And actually,
Wow.
I was actually involved with that because of Facebook. I had told many of my Facebook friends that no, the Smithsonian has videos out there saying all this stuff. And so we had a guy who actually came to one of our events who had donated to the Smithsonian a skull. And he was a speaker at one of our events, and nobody knew that it was him. And the Smithsonian never put it out there who it was that donated it. So we were very surprised to hear from him when we found out it was him.
And
but
he had one of the original 12?
Well, you know what? That skull that he had, he never claimed it was an ancient skull, and then the Smithsonian claimed that it wasn't. Okay, and the way that they do that, they use a machine spectrometer, and they look to see what kind of rubbings are on it, how they were made and stuff like that. And so was it a modern day, brush, or, that cleaned it up or whatever. So, but you'll see in some of the ancient skulls, not old, but, well, you might even find it in some old skulls, but you'll definitely see it in ancient skulls that it can't be explained how they were.
Can you find pictures of these skulls online? Are these available if we search?
Yeah, they're available. You can
original
go
ancient ones.
You can Google ancient crystal skulls. You can Google crystal skulls. I'll tell you another website that's really good though. They were sponsored. They sponsored me for 4 years. They're really great people, and especially if someone's looking to buy a skull and get one. But there's lots of information on their website. It's www.crystalskulls.com.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. So do you have, in the healing sector, do you ever know the proper use of a crystal skull to take care of a certain ailment? And I'm not talking medically, like to remove or cure anything, but I'm talking about like to aid in the holistic well-being, like to help in health or discomfort.
Question. We have that a lot because we have a lot of healers that actually came to our events. They're psychologists. They're in that field, or they're medically in the field of nursing. They're healers, and there's a lot of natural healers that are really good. And so we've heard a lot of people talk about, for example, and that's what we think happened with these smaller ones, is that, let's say like you had something, a broken arm, or you had something here, they would use the skull to sit there, or on the brain, or wherever it was that the ailment was. Now, most natural healers who are empaths, okay, they just intuitively know what to do.
Because maybe the skull guides them or directs them.
Just intuitively know how to use the skull. And there's a lot of healers out there doing that, believe me.
Wow. Wow. So I'm seeing that since it's come my way, and I'm sharing it with our group and whoever is watching, and also since it's been acknowledged recently with the Smithsonian, and all of these conversations are happening. So it sounds like the crystal skulls are starting to be more activated, especially with what's going on in the world. Maybe it's like holding space or sending information. I wonder if all 12 talk to each other or communicate.
We feel that they do. We feel
Now,
that
you know, I find that interesting that it correlates with the 12 tribes of ancient times.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of talk about that too, that how far back do the skulls, you know, kind of go, or where they've been, because which kind of gets into another side story. But when David killed Goliath, I don't know whether a lot of people know this or not, but when he killed Goliath, he took Goliath's head off, and he took it to Jerusalem to bury it. And he buried it on a hill. And the name of that hill is Golgotha. And Golgotha is where Jesus was put to the cross. And that hill, Golgotha, is also called the Hill of the Skull.
Interesting.
And they have pictures of it, and there's caves there, and they look just like a skull.
Wow.
So there seems to be a deeper connection also with the skull around Christianity. And you'll see many times, and you go to Mexico and you can see it in the churches. They have their crystal skulls on the altars.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
Priests still use the crystal skulls.
Do you put the crystal skulls in your bedroom when you sleep at night, or is it too activating?
I have a box that I keep one of them in. He just feels better in there. And then I have another one in a display cabinet in my studio. And the small one goes with the big one, because they just seem to have a good connection together, those two. So that's where I keep mine.
Yeah. Wow. And if you were to keep them in your bedroom, I wonder if it would create more lucid dreaming, or there would be more activation. So maybe harder to go to sleep.
It can be. A lot of people sleep with their crystal skulls right next to them in their room. Yeah.
Woo! I couldn't even imagine the amplification. Oh, wow.
What they're usually working on is bringing up their own vibration,
right?
Their own frequencies, and so they're going to start vibrating the same as the skull.
Wow, that's fantastic. So what happens if you sit in between two crystal skulls? You have one on each side. Do you feel that's like a synergy between them? Like, is it more powerful is it more amplified to have both on either side, or is it just an overall auric feeling?
Well, you can, and it's very rare when you get a chance to sit with two ancient crystal skulls. That's why we brought them together for the events, because there's been some really great people before me, Nick Nasserino, Chet Snow. These people have worked with the skulls, and but we never really brought as many as we brought together in New York, and then again in Los Angeles, and then in Miami. We had a lot of what was considered ancient skulls, and when you do set between them, it's pretty high frequency stuff.
Yeah, I could imagine. Wow. Does it disrupt any kind of wave patterns that are in your home? Is it block EMFs? Like is it act just the same as like a typical crystal would, or is it more amplified because of the intentionality? Or
I think if you worked with your skull, if you worked with it and ceremony and had it around other skulls, even the ancient skulls, I believe so.
And if you want to reset your skull, do you put it in moonlight or water or salt, or how do you can reset your skull?
There are ways, just as you would a regular crystal. Like people will put them out on a full moon. You know, right. People will try to wash them in salt water.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of different techniques that people use on their crystals that they would use on their crystal skulls.
Have you tried that on your skulls? Have you?
I know, huh? I don't want to touch them like that. I like them just the way they are.
Wow.
one of the reasons is I don't let a lot of people touch the skull.
And why is that?
Because these are mine. These are like,
Do they have your imprint? It's your personal identification.
my imprint. Yeah.
I see. So they're very related to you.
Very much so. And not only do they have my imprint, but if they had set with, let's say, some other ancient skulls, they have their imprints, which now I'm a part of.
So you just don't want to interrupt that like, I guess, flow of data.
So many years ago, I was taking a class on tarot cards, and my instructor said, "Don't ever let anyone touch your tarot cards that you don't
I've heard
want."
that.
Okay, so it's like, okay, so normally you might want them to cut the deck or to shuffle the deck,
Right.
but that's about it. So it's very limited, and it's kind of the same way with the skulls. They're just another spiritual tool,
Right.
I think, and see how you work with it.
This has been so fascinating. I just, I'm speechless. Like there's been, I don't get speechless very often, but this is a very, like, I could feel the power on so many levels. It's the power of the guardians, the power of the intentionality of the people around it, the power that the crystal holds. It's like a mutual respect almost, as it's, the synergy, like, of the receiving and the feedback.
We actually have an ancient skull called Synergy. We do, and it's here in Tucson, by the way.
Wow. Yeah, is there like a store that someone can go into and see like a live, like really big crystal skull anywhere? That you know of, like locally or where you live?
Not locally. I don't think locally there's anybody that does. There is. I can't think of one. Sherry Whitfield, who has Synergy, is in Tucson.
Okay.
And she has groups and stuff that get together.
Oh, really? So people can find her online. And what's her name again?
Sherry Whitfield.
Sarah Whitfield?
Sherry.
Yeah. Sherry Whitfield. Okay. So we can Google Sherry Whitfield, Crystal Skulls, Arizona, and contact her on Facebook if they want to be a part of a group or something.
Right, and the name of her crystal skull is Synergy.
Synergy.
Right.
Wow, this was incredible. I'm, I want to, because I feel like this is a great place to close. I want to say that the overall feeling I get from the crystal skulls altogether is there's a calming effect, even though it's an activator. But I feel like it's very calming because there's such a comfort in knowing that it exists. So like knowing that it's there with you, that it's in your house, or even that that, like, just me knowing you have them, it feels so good. It's like a nice, comforting feeling.
Many people come into this studio and within 20, 30 minutes, I don't have the skulls out. They're here though. And they'll be like, I just get like so relaxed when I get in here.
That's exactly what I was feeling. It's, as I was talking about it, I kept getting this very calming effect that I feel like even when you lifted it up, I got instantly a feeling of relaxed.
That's
so interesting.
Again, that's me, but it's being magnified with them. They magnify that.
That's right. Fantastic. Kendall Ray, you have been such a kind of a trooper, I want to say, because it was such a last minute interview, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to really just coming on and just giving us all this information. And if anybody's interested, please reach out to Kendall Ray. There's ways to reach you, and that could be on Facebook. And if there's another way, just let me know and I'll put it in the description below. But I
appreciate you having me on your show.
This has been very, very informative. And I think I might have received a bit of a healing since because there's some sort of connection that I'm feeling something. And since I'm feeling this calming effect, I'm wondering if it's already started. It's the process of connecting to it.
Well, I'll tell you this much, because I get calls all the time on this one. If you start having dreams of skulls, crystal skulls.
Oh,
it actually means that they're coming your way. you will own a skull not very much longer after that.
Oh, you're giving me chills. I wonder if that's going to happen to me. I hope it does. That's so great. Well, so your audio went out there, just like we talked
It would
about.
be great. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and please subscribe and like. And if you want to keep these shows going, please show your support in the comments. And I would love hearing from you. And thank you, Kendall, so much. And I'm sure we will talk again.
Thank you.